just going to do like an insight video today. I've been meditating this morning, and because I've meditated, it's opened up like a bit more of a stream of consciousness today. And I just like sort of like sharing a few insights around what I'm feeling today, around the energies and around the shifting within myself, in relation to sort of like spirit world, spirit reality. Because I feel like, there's a lot of us that walk around in this physical body, in this physical realm, and we're very much sort of like, we're connected into this physical reality and this physical way of thinking. And like the spirit world is not, it's not like that. The spirit world doesn't work like that. When you're out of your physical reality and you're more in the spirit world, there is no judgment. Again, sort of like I've sort of like looked at many sort of like different spiritual channelings and spiritual information, and they talk about sort of like guides and overseeing sort of teachers and judgment. Sort of some, I've read somewhere that there's like judgment as well. And sort of like this morning I was just sitting there, and that was one thing that was coming through, judgment. And it was like talking about like consciousness. And the spirit world is sort of like the spiritual reality, and the spiritual realms are saying there is no judgment. The judgment is only the judgment that you put upon yourselves. And again, this is that sense of like not good or bad, not right or wrong. And I think we need to start really seeing it in these terms, because there is no judgment. The judgment is only how you judge yourself, or what you sort of like put on yourself is the judgment. There's no judgment in the spirit world. There's no sort of reality where you're judged. The spirit reality is very much around harmony, peace, balance, openness, connection. It's not about judgment. And even the universal laws are not about judgment, they're about opening. The universal law of correspondence, the universal law of attraction, the law of compensation, what you reap, what you sow, all that kind of stuff. It's still not about judgment. It's about, everything comes down to your consciousness and what you're creating. And the universe only reflects that. So remember that. Remember, the only judge in life is yourself, and how you feel about yourself, and what you create for yourself is what creates the reality. There is no judgment. It's the universe playing out in perfect harmony, in perfect reflection of what you're creating. Now, again, we need to make a sort of like draw a line a little bit here, because I feel, when you start talking about creation and you're talking about creating, there's things that happen in people's lives that, there's situations of like quite really traumatic situations that, and I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about those situations, because some of those situations come up, and some of those situations can be, connected to the things that need to go through, and the things that need to be released and stuff like that. I'm not saying that's created, that's not your fault. I'm not saying it like that. So I just think we need to be clear about that. But there's a lot of things that happen on an energetic level that we create. We create a lot of that, and the judgment only comes from how we're reflecting, and how we're sort of like reflecting, but also looking at how we're thinking about things, in that sense that, we reflect on something, and how we choose to perceive it is what creates that kind of judgment. But the judgment comes from your consciousness, your physical mind, not from the spirit world. So it's important to make that kind of distinction, because I think a lot of us, there's a lot of things going on in people's lives that, we feel and we get affected by. But the judgment is how you perceive yourself, how what you're creating, how you're using your energy is what creates that reality, what creates that outcome. And it's not their spirit world judging you, because the spirit world never judges. They're there to support, they're there to guide, they're there to align with, shift and give insight. They don't judge. So I think it's really important to sort of see that in that way, because I think a lot of us, sometimes we wonder, why is this happening to us? Well, actually look at your thoughts, look at your reality, look at what you're creating, look at how you're looking at something. How are you attached to it? What's going on? This is all about shifting and clearing, and this is the new kind of insight. This is the new shift that's happening for lots of us. I mean, spiritual people on spiritual journeys have known this for thousands of years, that there is no judgment. What we're experiencing is a reflection of our own consciousness, of our own realities, the reality that we're creating. There is no judgment in that way. So we have to start stepping out of that and seeing that, and not getting attached to something that happens. This happens on many different levels. something happens, you have a reaction to it, then you attach to it because you put more energy into it, so it creates it. But there's no judgment. You know, you didn't make a right or wrong or a good or bad decision. There was an experience there, but how you responded to it, how you used your energy to it, is what creates the outcome, which creates the reality. Everything is about reality, and this is why the universal law of perpetual transmutation is so important at this time, and it connects to Saint Germain. It connects that sense of shifting your energy and shifting your insight and shifting your perspective, because once you do that, then at will you can sit there and you can move and dissolve things, and this is the tool we've been given at this time, and this is why it's so important. But it then links into vibration, it links into the law of attraction, it then links into correspondence, in that way that you start to access your own source energy, and you start to, you know, send it out there. You start to like dissolve things, that you don't become attached to them. Attachment is one of the biggest things that separates us in this reality, in this spirit, in this physical reality, is when we become attached to something. You know, a lot of us, before we get somewhere, we've already created that outcome, and then when it goes and it aligns to that outcome, we think, well, you know, we'd already thought about it, and this was, you know, we'd already, you know, an outcome that comes out that, you know, you didn't want, is because you've created it, you've attached to it, instead of being open to an opportunity, or open to an insight or something else that you could have created. So a lot of us become attached to that, and then our physical realities become a reflection of what we're sort of like attaching to. So in that sense, the you know, the creation process, a lot of us are limiting it by remaining attached to something, instead of being open to new possibilities or new outcomes or higher outcomes. Not even higher outcomes, but infinite outcomes. Got to get away from that word of higher and lower, and because the spirit world don't work in that. There's infinite, and I have to keep being aligned, and I have to keep sort of like being reminded of that. We're not it's not higher and lower. There is no sort of separation. There is only this constant flow, and where we remain on that flow, it comes down to where our consciousness is, where our insight, our understanding, our yeah, our understanding of how we're using our energy. So, one outcome could be very expansive, but that's to do with your consciousness. It's to do with where your energy is and how you're creating at that moment. One could be more limited, but it's not higher or lower again. But the limitation is by how you're approaching it, how you're using your energy in it, because you have that infinite self. We all have those tools in us. We all have that information, that insight, because we're all these creative, infinite beings of source energy with seeds of creation in each and every one of us. So it's very much around that time at the moment. How do you do that? You remain open. You take time every day to go into your energy, to connect to your source energy. Open up your energy field. Open up your try and be like, open up your consciousness. And how you do that by taking time to connect into your source energy, your inner light, your energy and light. Everything is light and energy. Everything is light and energy. The more light you put to something, the more the more frequency, the more vibration, the more it opens up, the more it allows more information, more energy to come into it. The less light you put to something, the more sort of limited it is. It's very much around light and energy, and you'll know this by when you go into that inner source, that inner energy. You'll feel light, you'll feel hot, you'll feel vibrant, you'll feel energized, you'll feel open, you'll feel like there's this infinite kind of infinite space where you can receive and receive information. You'll also feel quite clear. There's like a clearness to it. So what I mean by that is, when you're in this kind of space in your energy and light, there is no other thoughts. There is no ever sort of like, you get things that jump in, but it's more like this massive space, like that, where there's like, you know, where you can receive, and you can start to receive light, receive energy, receive information, and it's a very expansive place to feel, and you'll feel it. You can feel it when you're in it. So it's very much around that. So this sort of, I've been talking about the video before that I just did was about separation and about wholeness and about sort of like infinite self. Well, there's another one, like the second part to this is about judgment. It doesn't exist. It's only through attachment. So remember that. There's nobody to impress. There's nobody to get recognition from. There's nobody to, there is none of that. There's no recognition. There's nobody to impress. There's nobody that you have to sort of like behave in a certain way to. What you need to do is express your light in your way, in your truth, and that's the key. That's the key to life. That's the key to being spiritual, is expressing your light from your true nature, from your source. And this is the only purpose of each and every spiritual being here. And when you do that, you become more aligned, you become more open, you become more connected. And this is what this time's about. We've been so limited for so long because what we're doing is we're connecting into this 3D reality of these an intellectual age where we're being connected into what you know the media tells us, what work tells us, when we've sort of lost that connection to true self, to our true nature. And this is what's so destructive about this time. And it actually feels quite emotional when I talk about it in that way. I feel quite sad, because there's this sense of this infinite self, this infinite source of energy that we've all got access to. It's been limited by a reality that's very much connected to competition and competition and things like that just there is no competition. Spirit don't live in that way. We don't live in that way. Our true nature is not about competition. It's not about striving. It's not about all that kind of stuff. It's about being. There's a completely different shift. It's a completely different vibration to it. And this is what I'm trying to shift in my life, and this is what I feel, with higher insight and higher understanding, we all need to shift. Because when we start to shift up that kind of connection to that kind of reality, we start to see that there's a bigger picture. There's a bigger sort of like blueprint that we can create. There's so many possibilities, so many opportunities, and we all have the ability to help and support and guide each other, because we're part of this infinite source of energy, but we're part of an infinite family, a spirit family, a spiritual light and energy that we're all connected to. We're all part of the same whole. So each and every one of us is just as important and just as of much value as each other. And it's about sort of like really starting to see the world in that way, and stop getting out of the I and start going into the we, because the I is the limited experiences where it's about us. It's not about that. We're here, and we're part of a whole. We're part of like this source energy that's part of each and every one of us. We're all interconnected, and it's about us sort of like starting to open up to that, and start to do that. And but you start with yourself. You start with yourself by connecting into your own source energy and starting to express your light and your energy in a way that it starts to dissolve your own boundaries, your own limitations. It dissolves separation, and then you start to connect to this infinite source, of light energy, and understanding that there's no judgment, there's no separation, and there's no good or bad. There just is. There's just a sense of, there's just this one vibration that we're all part of, and we're all part of the same whole. So that there is no competition. There's no good or bad. There isn't any of that. So that's the insight for today.